Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not in temptation, but deliver us from evil, as it was in the beginning, is now, ever shall be, world without amen. Aho. What is that? That is baby Jesus. And that woman holding baby Jesus is Mother Mary. And this is an Aboriginal tribe in the Nukunba, out in the Northern Territory of Australia, around 1978. And there is my little dingo dog, and there's me, the anthropologist. And this tribe was all that was left of the Wallumegeeri. In 1971-ish, they found uranium, titanium, cobalt, other very rare elements out in the middle of their desert where they were, just all by themselves. No one cared about them. They were out there in the desert and they found this stuff. And instead of negotiating or finding a better home for them or taking care of them, they basically went out there and shot everyone in the head and left them on the ground to just have their bodies blow into the wind. And this group here was not with the rest of the tribe. They were out picking berries. So they kind of, they were amazing in that they held no grudge. They were not, they felt sorry for the white people. Look at these people's legs. I mean, look at that foot. Their feet are like shoes. They didn't wear shoes, And this guy with a cowboy hat, he loved being a cowboy, right? And, the government gave them welfare, and they didn't take it, They would get the money, and they would give it to other people who needed it, right? And the white folks said, well, those people are so stupid. Look, they're giving their money away. They're just a waste, But when the white folks needed cowboys, this guy was in his 90s, and he could out-cowboy anybody. And so what is this live chat about? Here it is, the election day, and what's his name? T was like, it's election day, Well, if you are registered, you're going to vote, you should vote, and you should vote like straight Democratic, not because they're any better, just because it would throw a monkey wrench into things, slow things down. The only way this can work, our political structure, is if we, the individuals, live our life as an example by living as Jesus Christ, as Buddha, as Vishnu, as Muhammad. Now, those other guys were, ascended masters. Islam calls Muhammad a prophet. And he was, praised be his name. And the other guys, were, above us ugly bags of water. They were more than the avatar, just living out, incarnation after incarnation. And we're not given any information, we're not given a heads up, because the folks who genetically engineered us to be just slaves, they didn't want us to know squat. But the beauty of Dharma and karma is that it's a wheel and it goes around. And every so often, we get an opportunity to step off or step up, right? Now, when you die, don't go towards that light. you got a tunnel, and there are all these little doorways that you can step through. Instead of going this way and just getting reincarnated into being another bag of water so you can be used by the Matrix, you know. So I'm doing this series, 40 days and 40 nights, because Jesus was out there for 40 days, Moses was, David was, Noah was, all our great, the great Muhammad, praise be his name, he was, and I just say stuff, I ramble. There's a guy who does a great YouTube. It's called Living Off the Grid, and he does a morning ramble, and he rambles, and I watch it every morning because he really does a great job at lifting my spirits. I mean, I wake up every morning in unbelievable pain because I let myself physically go for 10 years because I worked for the Desperate Lawyers, and I kind of, did their lifestyle. I drank too much, and I ate 20, 30,000 calories a day of to die for chocolate cake. And, I got diabetes and neuropathy and charcoal legs and a whole bunch of other things that, my organs kind of went south. Now, there's this guy named Adamski who was one of the first people to actually kind of be, he wasn't taken away, but, a extraterrestrial came and visited him and said, "Hey, Bob, how you doing? We've been watching you, and we want to make you like our diplomat. You Earthlings, not Americans, you Earthlings, you humans, you are, like stupider than monkeys. And you've just stumbled into having nuclear weapons. You don't even know what they are. You think it's a big firecracker. Every time you detonate one of those things, it affects people on all other dimensions in ways that you have no idea. And you guys were out in the North 40. No one seemed to care about you. There were a number of us who kind of kept an eye on you because even though you're a genetic experiment, you were given this thing free will and a soul. And even though there are trillions of life forms out there, not all of them have free will and a soul, and you guys do, and you don't even know what to do with it. And so that's why tonight's show is You Are Love's Universe. We are the universe. I mean, we think we're the hottest. No, we are out in the North 40. We are like, insignificant, but we have potential. And not everyone has potential. Now, there are a lot of extraterrestrial folk and dimensional folk, and a lot of folk who want, or are interested anyway, in seeing what we're going to do with this potential. And so we have been, the Cuban Missile Crisis, I don't know, hundreds of times our stupid machines who said, "Oh my God, look, the Russians are launching their submarine missiles." And that's why Mikhail Gorbachev and Ronnie Reagan kind of stepped back from the precipice. They were building and building. I mean, they had about 70,000 deliverable nuclear weapons. And they, with the ABM treaty and the other treaties to disarm, they backed it back to, now we have just a few thousand. The Defense Department said that just 100 between Russia and the United States, if they were let go at once, would cause a nuclear winter and kill about 98% of everything on the planet. Just 100. And we have thousands, both sides. And both Putin and Donnie want to start a new arms race, we are broke. We have deficits. Almost made me cry. Yeah. So my sensei, right? Japanese, Swiss, German, priest, Japanese Shinto priest. His family's temple was right there in Hiroshima, right on the river, right in a little island. And the U.S. Air Force used it as ground zero, and it wasn't touched. And, it blew away 100 and something thousand people in a nanosecond. And then, another 60 died of their wounds and radiation and burns. And then thousands more were born genetically hampered. But same goes with the United States. I mean, we have detonated, I don't know, 900 above ground tests from, 45 till when we had the test ban treaty in 61. I've done almost now 200 of these programs. And, I did about 30 on What's-His-Name's channel. And you really liked all the stories of like Jimi Hendrix and the Crone and now John, or what's his name, he got so upset every time I talked about him. I told him that I'd never mention his name again. It slips out now and then. But when we did those, we had a kind of interesting chemistry. A lot of you folks got very upset with what's his name. Yeah, shut the fuck up, that guy. What is he, nuts? Blah, 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 blah. No, he wasn't. I kept saying, hey, this guy is the canary in the social coal mine. I mean, what's his name really does, and he's not nuts, He really isn't. At worst, he's a bit neurotic. And he's a Libra, so he kind of, Libras, if they can stay in balance, they're the best, But when they do this, it's never fun. And the only way Libras can stay balanced is when they are happy and joyful. And the only way they can be happy and joyful is when they're making others happy. Now, most people don't realize this. They think, being a rock star or, the greatest artist known to man or a billionaire will make them happy. Not really so much. I've been around a lot of those folks, and they were never happy. I worked for Andy Warhol. He was brilliant, and he had a great career, and he was one of the, best artists of the beat scene and early, 60s, 70s art scene. But he was like the guy, Mark Twain. Mark Twain was like Andy Warhol. He when he was poor, he wanted to be rich. When he had a family, he wished he was free. Then they all died, and he, lamented. And when he was rich and famous, he wanted solitude. And that was Andy Warhol. And what we have to do is embrace our lives. We are love's universe, That was given to us. Our free will was given to us to express that love in co-creation with love to make the world better for all our relations, And you look at the body politic of the human body politic, no matter where it is unbelievably corrupt because everyone, it's like, everyone is in this contest to be imperial, to run the world, right? And they're not doing too good a job of it, the MK guys, right? The guys who are, we're the pirates of the Babylonian money magic, the Rothschilds, the and they were forced to choose. The Russians put, these guys were hanging out on the Silk Road in 300 A.D. And as that version of globalization was starting via Rome, they were just stealing everything they could and raping and pillaging. And they were like ISIS. They wanted a caliphate. They didn't call it that, but they liked having a base of operations that they could squeeze every bit of life on and then go on to the next little chunk of real estate and do the same thing, terrify everyone and basically force them to do, everything they wanted them to do, and they'd kill them all and rape them all and then move on to the next section. And the only people who really took, Rome couldn't care less because it was so big and so all over the place, and it was itself corrupt. And, an empire can only exist if it's consuming, right? So they were consuming everything, and these guys were minuscule compared to them, but they were berserkers, right? That term came from these guys. And they kind of settled down on the edge of Russia. And the Tsar was just, getting his scene into the imperial state, and these guys were making a bigger crimp on his business plan than they were on Rome's. So he took his forces and, stuck his boot on their neck and said, listen, I don't care what you guys do. We're all criminals, We're all berserkers. But you have to pretend you fit in. By being so just nuts, you got to, you're freaking everybody out, and mostly our people who are giving us a hard time for what you do. So you do one of two things. You have to pick a religion. You have to either be Christian, Jewish, or Muslim. We don't care. Pick one, right? And fit into that group, and then rip that group off, in a subtler way than being a berserker. Cause other people to go berserk, and you take the money from it. That's a nice business plan. And so these guys did, and they chose to be, the Hebrews, right? Now, back around that time, around, let's see, my notes here. 325, the Roman Empire said, Jews, they can't marry Christians, And then around 348, they said, Jews can't hold, political office. Around 356, they said, Jews can't own property, right? But they can have bling, right? Because the Jews became important and had social status because whenever the emperor needed to have a war or build an army, he couldn't depend on, the Romans had so depleted the value of their money that they couldn't borrow on it anymore. And it's just like us. We are the carbon copy. Donald Trump should be called Nero or Caligula and start wearing a toga because he's doing exactly, and it's not just Donnie. Donnie was put there by this, what I call the hidden hand, which is the modern version of the KM, right? Who became the Anunnaki, who were the Aryans, who became the Aryans and then became the Anunnaki, then became the guys who are running Israel today. That's not a Jewish state, because they are the Hail Hydra, and they have, they're in cahoots with Saudi Arabia, They are ready to burn again. They are berserkers, The Zionists are berserkers. You go talk to the other 12 tribes of the Hebrew, and they're not too happy with the Zionist political structure. And, the Muslim folk are basically Christians on steroids. I'd love to see Christians pray 5 times a day. Muslim folk are not, they think the Roman Catholics are basically pagans because they are ideologues, and they are, And they have all these statues of all these saints, which basically are pagan demigods. Now, everyone loves to quote their book, but they quote it out of context. No one is scholarly about their spirituality because they don't have any spirituality. Everything to everyone who has a religion, it's basically a business plan. Every mega church is more concerned about how many checks are coming in and being, basically tax free. I used to write, again, working for lawyers, I used to write grant proposals and such. And I worked for this one group that did all of these church 501c3s, so they could get their tax status. And this guy who I did it with, we were both, real chuckleheads. And we wrote a proposal for a church that was the Church of the Most Holy Sepulchre of the Oven Mitt. And our God was an oven mitt because, you got a casserole in the oven at 425 and you put the oven mitts on, you take it out and you don't burn your hands. That's a friggin' miracle. Anyway, we wrote this and the IRS said, sure, hey, you can have a religion where your God is an oven mitt. Hey, kids, every other religion is on that level. Now, there are people, who are Muslims and Christians and Jews who are great people. And their churches are great churches. And, and they usually get whacked like this, synagogue, the Tree of Life, got whacked. I mean, the better people, the innocent people, the good people, the people who are being there for love's love co-creation, usually are sacrificed in the worst of ways. The scumbags, they get by, no problem. One of the things I do when I cruise into a city, I try to connect myself with the social dynamics of how to help the needy, because that makes me happy. If I can make other people happy, it makes me happy. When I was dying and I was living in Roanoke, and I basically had to let go of everything. Now, I had, made a nice, lots of properties and stocks and this and that and money in the bank. Well, I got sick, couldn't work. 5 years, it was all taken away. And the universe was trying to say, hey, kid, okay, you were hedonist for 10 years. You did all this crazy. So you were happy with that? Did that make you happy? No. It almost frigging killed me. And there was only, I've already died 6 times, go into the light, talk to the boys on the other side. And they always sent me back saying, hey, you got more to do. And it'll behoove you if you keep plugging at it, which, I learned that if you never give up, you always win. And winning isn't like, like people think, Las Vegas. No, winning is making other people happy. Winning is bringing love's co-creation to everyone. Winning is bringing the realization to all of, the meat puppets, the mud bags, that they're living. They weren't thrown out of the Garden of Eden. We're here. This is it. Have you guys, why do you think I live in the deep woods? Because it's the Garden of Eden. There's nobody there. I'm on a little road. There is no industry. There is no lights. It's Sawtooth Mountains. I, get no radio except at night on the AM on the skip. And, I have no internet. I have no cell phone. I have no computer. I mean, I have a little laptop that I write on, but, that's all I do with it. And my interaction with people, and every day in every way, I make them happy. I'm in that little instant of that discourse, I kind of break them out of their sorrows. I kind of read their palm. If I have my runes with me, I read the runes. I give them insights on how to be happy for them and their family. And then when and virtually they either start crying or hug me and say, "This has made my year." Well, that makes me happy when I can send folk off. And my little 200 square miles, there's so few people there. And the towns, of Johnson City and Boone, North Carolina, and Bristol, which are the places I go to go shopping, there are very few, and there's nobody like me in any of them. So pretty much once I'm in a neck of the woods, they kind of get to know me, and so I can see how I affect, like my banker there. I cruised in one day, and it's a national chain. So my bank really, when I opened these accounts, was in Virginia and Florida, and then everybody kind of, in 1986, there were 30,000 different banking corporations. Now there are 9. Anyway, I can check on people. So this bank, I went in there, and there's the manager, there's the second, and then a bunch. There are about 8 people there. And every time I come in, they light up because I read their palms, I tell them stories, and it's kind of interesting. Every time I roll in, nobody else is in the bank for the 10 to 40 minutes that I'm there. As soon as people start lining up, I say, "Well, I got to go to lunch. See you guys later." And every time I do, they just light up to see me show up. And every time I tell them something, the next time I see them, they're a little happier for what I had told them the last time. And we can all do this. We can all have empathy. We can all be connected to each other. Now, today I was sitting in my favorite brunch spot, and they have really good Wi-Fi. So instead of, doing a morning live chat, I kind of looked at all the stuff you guys laid down on my channel, all the different other channels, and I went to all the different ones, all like the, Q Amon and all of that kind of stuff, and I guess the right wing, the religious right, the born again Christian, all of those kind of channels, and they have their shows, and I left little saying, "Hi, this is your Sensei Al Bob. Why don't you come watch our show tonight?" And I gave him the address to come on by to see if I can enlarge the family. And, so any of you folks out there of the 7, were you interested in viewing this, or is this the 210 family members? But anyway, today is the, voting day, right? And Donald Trump, he's polarized this country, but so did, Obama, and so did George W., and so did Bill Clinton, and so did George H., and so did virtually every friggin' president since Ike has polarized the American body politique. And the thing about Donnie is he's the X-lax of the body politique. And he lies through his teeth, but so did every other freaking president. But they were just a little more presidential about it. He does it on Twitter, and he is he can't help himself. He is so narcissistic, but you have to be narcissistic to be president. I mean, every one of those other guys was, Bill Clinton, give me a break. That guy was off the hook, and they put him in power. They said, "Listen, Billy, we are going to make you president, and we want you. We're going to send you a little honey, and we want you to work your willy with her, and then we're going to spill the beans. And for more than half of your presidency, all we're going to talk about is your willy, because we want to distract the body politic, and we're going to, take a sledgehammer to the banking laws." And that's what he did. We're going to take a sledgehammer to the social safety net. That's what he did. He changed, he got rid of welfare. We have no welfare. They call Social Security welfare. No, that is a savings program you guys pay into every week. It's not a gift. The gift was the tax breaks they gave to the corporations and the, you know, 1/2 of 1% of the most wealthy. That was the gift. That was the welfare. That talk about welfare mothers. That's Bill Gates is the biggest mofo I know. Along with the Rockefellers and all the rest of those folk. And Donald Trump, just look at you know he was put in power. I mean, he lost. Hillary won by 2 or 3 million or how many ever. And, I'm a demographer. I look at the numbers on everything. And, there's never been a real serious voter fraud, right? And now they've like taken, you got to, have a genetic imprint. Meaning, part of this whole thing about screwing with people's ability to vote is that it's going to and people hacking your credit card and all the rest is the thing they're going to use to basically have electronic currency, Bitcoin, and basically have your face, your eyes, your fingerprints, everything as your ID, and in a way that won't be bad. You won't have to go through all the hassles they put people through. Like as an old guy and homeless, my paperwork is spread across the universe. And pretty much, if anybody needed a young, old, or whatever, there's always an excuse why. Oh, sorry, can't vote. Sorry, can't do this. Oop, So, biometrics, not, it's like anything else, can either be used as a weapon or a tool. A hammer, you can build a house with it or put it in someone's forehead, And so, but this has been ever such. It's just because of certain elements of technology, like this little thing I'm talking to you over, social media, allows us to see these things, and then get riled up. Okay, let's read some of, let's see, I'm reading article on Hiroshima. Yes. Yep. I mean, with that flash and that people were at certain places and there was concrete, all that was left of them was a shadow on the concrete. Should I give my all to trying to get back my family? Yeah. John, as I told you before, everything, the most important thing is your kids. Not being a movie star, not being a rock and roll star, not, being a millionaire. It's your family. That's the most important thing. And it will behoove you. It will fulfill you. It will make you healthy. You won't have to take any drugs to be stable because, I looked at that picture you sent me of you in the parking lot with your kids, and the smile on your face said it all. The smile on their face said it all. It wasn't, that you gave them a $1,000 cell phone. It was because you were there, being real with them. Showing your love for them. And that will make you healthier. That will make you happy. You won't have to feel depressed. If you're with your kids, making them happy, that sight of them being happy, that feeling of making them happy, and it won't be with making stuff, giving them stuff. No, it's not things. It's your love that you share with them that will make you what you are. Well, John, you're the one who kind of came on live chat here. So, hey, we're chatting, right, guys? What does everyone else think about John? Yep. Gentle, kind nature, John. The unity of love, John. Bless your family, John. You're always really kind to them? Always? Well, as Trevor says here, it's always worth being kind. You know, the thing about relationships, I used to be a counselor in that. And guys, what do you think the biggest cause of divorce is? Okay? And I'll tell you what it is. I won't keep you guessing. The biggest cause of divorce is when one person has to do the dishes. It's not money, it's not sex. It's because that is the most physical representation of what the other person feels about the other person. One of the things that kept both of my wives happy and the women that I lived with was that I always made sure that whatever household tasks was duly shared by both. I never let pots and pans in the sink. I may not wash them to someone's anal retentive needs, but I will scrape all the crud out and wash them off and put them in the drain board, and they will be like 98% well washed, right? And that 2%, if the person wants to take it back and scrub it up, well, that's fine. But they usually appreciate the fact that I scrubbed it up 98%. It is the very abnormal individual who goes, "Oh, it's such a mess. You did leave this place a mess," and it's really 98% cleaned. When people pick, "You make me so unhappy. Oh, you're making me so angry, driving me crazy." Well, what is happening in that situation is that the person who's just being their person reflects the person who's really upset with themselves. They see the other person and it sets them off. My parents, I would see it all the time. I was I'm the observer. All of my brothers and sisters kind of interacted in just like my parents did, in reactionary form. Instead of, "Why is this happening? Let me think about it. What's my situation here? What did I do to make this happen? Oh, not too much. Okay. Let's see. Oh, that person did this person did that." And being the Aquarian that I am, and most Aquarians do this, they think with their heart and they feel with their head. So when someone does something really nasty to you, instead of letting your hormones go, "Ah!" and then throw your best friend under the bus, throw your best friend out in the middle of a snowstorm at midnight and make your best friend, who has no other place to go, almost have to die, well, that's because your hormones, your chemistry is taking hold of you, right? Your better self. It's just like Daffy Duck. He can either be his better angel or his worst devil. And in most relationships, people set each other off unless, people used to say to me when I was, counseling, "Well, we're community with." Like when I lived in the ashram in Vermont, I did 80% of all the work because I enjoyed doing it. And I saw that what I did made people happy. And I was the good example that kept the community on an even keel, right? And, within that community, there was no one who was totally neurotic or totally self-involved or there were people who thought they were, hot stuff, because people told them that they were. They were doctors, they were surgeons, they, came from big hospitals, and they came to this ashram, and, the first thing this guy makes them do is learn how to, make a cup of tea, and then build a tea house, which would be our where we made all our food, but we called it our tea house because it was, on Japanese specs of a tea house. And the next thing he taught us was how to bathe, how to clean ourselves. And these were all metaphors to, if you want to do healing, you have to be centered. And making a nice cup of oolong or herbal tea will center you better than anything, And cleaning yourself, all your little pores and orifices, instead of being neurotic about it, but just being, happy about it. I mean, there's nothing better than soaking in a Shinto bathtub. There's nothing. It's nice and hot. It's just the right temperature. It's just, and there's like the little flow of the heat and the water. There is no body dysmorphia when everyone gets naked and gets in the bathtub together and scrubs each other's back. It's like when the monkeys are picking the grubs out of their fur. It's when they're the happiest. So the whole thing about being joyful, and this has been part of what I've been riffing on for the last few days, is that you enjoy what you do. That you don't, oh, how am I going to pay my bills? Oh, what am I going to do? Oh, I have to work so hard. Oh, I hate doing this. Oh, why? No. No. You are there to make the other, not to look at the other as someone to blame, but the other, you make them happy. And that's how you have a really good relationship, by making the other person happy. Whenever I had a birthday, I always gave everybody else a present. Every day to me is Christmas, and I treat everyone like people try to treat each other on Christmas or those kind of holidays. Every day to me is Christmas, because right now, I have to have all my teeth ripped out of my head, and the only place I can afford to have that done is at the. They're not like my, I used to, when I had some money, I had a great dentist who fixed my teeth. He didn't rip them out and put something else in it. He would fix it. And when I had to have a tooth removed, I had a dental surgeon who was like, and his uncle was Dr. Kevorkian. So if you had more than 3 teeth removed in one shot, he would give you a T-shirt saying, "I survived Dr. Kevorkian." I mean, he had a great sense of humor, and he was a great dental surgeon. But today, not so much. I got about 7, 8 teeth left in my head, and I only have 2 that can chew. And this guy wants to pull all but 3 out. And then I really don't have any money to get false teeth, so I won't have any teeth to chew on anything. So my teeth don't hurt. They're not falling out of my head. So every time I have an appointment to go have 4 teeth ripped out of my head, and my teeth don't hurt, I go call them up and said, "Hey, I can't make it." And they go, "Well, let's see." So I was supposed to go today, and I called up the other day, and I said, "So when's the next time I can come and see the guy?" And they said, "Oh, maybe in February or March." Well, hopefully these guys in my head can hang in there until February or March. I said, "Well, if they go south," they said, "Well, if you go south, call us up and we'll try and fit you in." But anyway, so they understand. So they let me keep pushing it further, And I wake up every morning in unbelievable pain. But that pain to me is a gift, because it's I wake up, bing, oh yeah, I'm alive. And then, when I took the clamps off my legs and, walked on these pegs, the doctor said, "Well, that's going to be awful painful. We're going to have to give you a morphine pump and, 500 milligrams of OxyContin." I said, "No, I'm not taking any of that stuff." And they said, "What? Why not?" And I said, "Because I don't want to be a vegetable. And I will take care of it with meditation." So every morning I wake up and, and I meditate, And when I was in the deep green, it was great, man. Because I would wake up and my little sleeping loft, or I don't even know what to call it. It's not quite a bed, but it was comfy, and I would meditate for 5-10 minutes, and then I'd get up. That would take me 5 or 10 minutes, and then I'd walk around. And I have like chairs and benches all through the forest, so I can walk through the forest and sit down and breathe, and pretty much all day long I have to sit down for 5 or 10 minutes, and then I have to get up, because if I were to stay there too long, like when I do these chats, my body starts to rust. We oxidize. And one of the, you go to your Bibles, and in the beginning, all those guys lived 900 years. We're supposed to live 900 years because we need a life that long to realize what life is. Now, I'm pushing 70, and I've had about 10 different lives of all the different things I've done. So how did I get to be Sensei Al Bob? Is that I had a lot of experiences. I just didn't do the same thing over and over, expecting a different outcome. Freud said that's the sure sign of insanity. Now, I don't give up on friends, so I keep, a lot of people say, why are you with that guy? Well, because he's my friend, right? And I've had loads of friends. And one of the greatest gifts is when you can help a friend really make a turn in their life to be better. And, I had friends who committed suicide many times, and they never, they slit their wrists, they took pills, and all it did was screw them up. If you go back, and the story of Gary Blue is a perfect story of that, And, yeah. Why do we have children? It is to love them, and that's why we have children. That's why I had over 280 godchildren, because in all of these communities and things I helped build, there were all these kids who had no parents. And instead of like letting them die on the street, I helped them figure out what they were going to do with their life. Taught them a trade. They could always help me be an electrician. And every single one of those folk who actually kind of oh, this is kind of fun. I like doing this, because I only did electric work because I really liked doing it. So anyway, it's 49 minutes and 9 seconds. Okay, let's see what you guys have been saying. Let's see. Article, okay. Should I give one? Yep, okay. I see my experience, Brother John, probably the hardest work you'll ever do, and that most valuable. Be sure your gentle, kind, and generous nature will make love grow. Yep. That's who we really are. We are gentle, kind creatures. Not mean, not cruel. We're not an animal. No. See, bless your family, bro. Yes, thanks. See, always worth it. Obviously. Yeah, but she makes it really difficult. Well, then be better, all the women I were with were amazingly special, and I focused on their needs and their specialities because it made my life more fun, more interesting, to help bring out the best in them. And they realized that. So, my second wife, man, she was a Aries. She was a total Aries, like, and the first time we slept together, she basically said, "I'm keeping you," because that evening, it was all about her. Everything. And to them, I made her brunch. She told me earlier on in our phone calls what she liked for breakfast. Just in conversation, I made it for her. I took a shower that morning in her bathroom and realized she had a carpet there. And I realized she put her makeup on, and she was a fashion designer. She had a fashion house, so she looked, wow, every moment of the day. And I knew if I just got out and splashed the water around on that carpet, she would come in there with her pantyhose and, be pissed off. So I dried myself off in the bathtub, right? And I brought socks in there. And I dried myself off as much as I could. I stood on that towel, I put my socks on, and I walked into the bedroom where I had my clothes and put them on, and then went. And she went into the bathroom to make herself up, and I was making her breakfast. I made her a cappuccino, and she came in and it was all ready. It smelled amazing. She looked at it, and she just gave me this biggest, beautiful kiss and said, "I'm keeping you." And I said, "Why?" And she explained, of all the guys who slept over, you're the only guy who didn't even, that rug was not even moist. And I walked in there to make myself, and I was wearing my brassiere and my pantyhose because, usually there isn't a guy here. So I wasn't really thinking about it because I'm thinking about what to do at work and 100 other things. But I noticed, oh yeah, he took a shower, and I was already standing on the carpet, and it wasn't wet. He said, "You're the only person who ever did that." And that was, the 8 years I was with her, I always thought 1,000% for her. And it changed her life in ways to the point where she thought 1,000%. We never had an argument. We never agreed on anything, but we never had an argument. We had conversations. We had discourse. We discussed, and we worked out what we were going to do. So she came to things that I was doing, and she would think, before she met me, I wouldn't want to do that. But then she kind of came and did stuff, and she, whoa, like we went to the 15th anniversary of Woodstock, right? And she thought that whole scene was like, ugh, dirty hippies, right? She went and was like, oh, I love this, because I knew all the people there, and the people who were running the thing, I knew them. So we were like in the back, talking to all the artists, and she, everyone was like, because whatever she was the most amazingly beautiful woman in any group. And her light, her beauty shone out from the inside out. It wasn't just makeup. It wasn't just the clothes she was wearing. It wasn't just the shape of her body. It was what was in here shining out. And I was the lens that light shone through, We were always holding hands, We were always, like I said, we were always 1,000% for each other. And my first wife, very similar thing too, That's a whole different story. But the almost 10 years we were together, there were lots of amazing things about her that she basically didn't want people to see. And I said, honey, that's who you are. You were great. You were, I just kept building her up. And always, whatever she needed, I took care of it. So that's what you have to do in relationships if you want them to succeed. And I had a lot of other women in my life, but because of my 2 marriages, the timing, meaning there were about 4 other women I should have married. And I when I was with the old crone, right, and I didn't pass the test, I drank the 3rd pot of tea and tried to put the animals in the van to take them for a drink. She sent me on my way and said, and on your way, before you leave Dublin, go to this this neighborhood and go find the tea house there, and that young lady, have her read your tea leaves. And so I did that, and that neighborhood was communications. I had seen what I have done for my kids since she left with them last May. Have traveled. Yeah. It isn't what, we don't have to make a list of all the things we've done for someone, We do it because we want to, not because we have to. It's not an ordeal, It's not, oh, this was so much hard work. No, it's a joy to be with your family, to be in love with them. Yeah, see? Right here. We do what we can. Blessings from the Emerald Isle. Yep. Let's see. Trevor is always a good touchstone. Aquarians are very passionate. Yeah, we are. But people think we're. My first wife used to call me a compassionate computer because I'm always analyzing things. Observing it all was what I did as a child. Also, see, all these Aquarians are very. See, you are saying, I'm staying for free, but I'm taking care of the place, John. I'm watching out for your cats, and I'm fixing things here, and organizing. So when you come back, you'll have a house that you really like to be. And I'll get. I'm taking care of a lot of things here. No big deal. Yep. And all the things I've done, John, I've done because it made me happy to do it for you. Everything I've done, all the meals I've cooked, all the shopping, all the errands, all the this, it wasn't. It made me happy to do it for you. Well, I could go on and on about the bus, but I won't, And John, you keep bringing it up in the chat here, all these other people, I mean, look at all the hearts they got on there, It's no deal at all, no problem. Remember who you are. It's like walking down here. Johnny Bro, just remember your love, children, and Al are lovable. Yep. Who is that? Yes, Jamie. The thing I love about you guys is that you got such a sense of humor. And John, you could learn something from these folks. Sense of humor is the key to happiness. No, I didn't say that. I said when you do the same thing over and over again, and you expect a different outcome. That's and I didn't say this. Freud said that's the definition of insanity. But the other side of the coin is you have to stick to things. You can't give up. So if you want to be, if the most important thing is your kids and your family, well, hey. Instead of, being 1,000 miles from them for half a year, you did the right thing to go see them. And you're doing the right thing, staying there, being with them, right? Because that, you are showing your commitment to their love and your love for them. And that's the thing I was describing about when you're with people and you want to make them happy. That's the thing that can make you happy, right? Not when other people do stuff for you. Let's see. Unless you prefer to elaborate on the context of your words, but you just told me not to talk about it. Hey, Al. And I listened to your quotes, comments, said German. Just perfect. Mainly P. House, the secret teachings of all. Yep, exactly. Deeply reminded me of the Avatar. Yes, Mayor Baba. I met that guy. He was very interesting guy. Listen, John, at least try to realize everything connected. Don't you get it? Let's do more stories when I get back, whether that's in a few weeks or months or whatever. John, I think it'd be really great. So I'm taking care of the place, not a problem. The cats they are pissed that you aren't here. Like I said, they have nothing to do with me. Today I saw the fact that they were both there. The orange one for a number of days, all I could hear, I have actually been able to tell the difference between the black one and the orange one, the way they jump down from your neck of the woods down into the kitchen. And I've kept the window open so they go out, that cold. Really haven't had to turn on the heat, except the little space heaters. But other than that, not really. Haven't had to. And so, that's a good thing. And it looks like the weather's going to pretty much stay this way until probably after Thanksgiving. But if we could do a road trip, I was thinking what might be really fun is if you bring the boys back here, right? And they stay here for a week or two through Thanksgiving, and you and the boys have Thanksgiving with your parents. Then we drive from here back to Texas, and then we take them, for a real road trip to Las Vegas and California, and and like I was telling you about that dream I had, Dad and the boys. You take the band on the road. But, just whatever her issues are her issues. John, you just have to be the nice guy you are and keep at it, and spend your real energy on your boys. You're there for your boys, not to rekindle anything but a solid, positive relationship between their mother and you and them. That's all. You don't have to, go back to the way it was. Usually you can't do that. Once you break a few things, you can't go back and make it worse. Like I said, the biggest thing that causes people to get divorced, you fool around, you cheat, you lie, you steal. Spouses can forgive that. But taking them for granted, it's hard to forgive that. Let's see. New York in the 60s and 70s, all those guys came through, and I had a really amazing friend. So I was hooked up in the Theosophical Society and that whole antediluvian community that's now the life fulfilling community that have expos and all that kind of stuff. And we started doing that. And so those guys were the guys who used to come and speak at these conferences. And her name was Halley. And her father was a astronomer. And when Halley's Comet cruised by in the 20s, he was in India, because that was the spot that you could see it best. And he stayed there and stayed in India for, a number of years. And Halley grew up in India. And she hung out with all the masters, they thought she was a little avatar herself, which she was. And she was like the New York City version of the old Irish crone, because I'll have to unearth some photos of her. I mean, I used to hang with her and live with her. She had this great little apartment off of McDougal Street that was in an alley, and then it was like a fence around. If you ever go near 9th Street, where it goes into 6th Avenue in the West Village, there is a basketball place there, that run by the city. It's right, it's one of those, got a chain link fence around it, and that was a place where all the basketball greats would come and play street ball, and thousands of people would hang out and watch these games. It was pretty amazing. And she lived just down the street in this little alley, and it was like these little houses around a little garden. It was like something straight out of Tolkien. And she was a little person herself. She was about 5'5", if that. And she could dance. and we used to go out and dance up a storm. And she was in her 80s. She could dance. She could dance anybody under the. And she had her whole life. She had been a vegan, right? Before vegan was even known what a vegan is. And she used to grow her own vegetables in that little garden. And all of those Indian gurus would come and their entourage would have a place in the Waldorf Astoria, and they would stay at her little apartment. And I mean little. I mean, it was probably, no more than, 600 square feet. It was like my Aunt Grace's apartment. And it was also a rent-controlled apartment. And when she was in her pushing 90, it was like Harold and Maude. And I was in my 19, 20, 21. And between 17 and when I met Donna on the subway, I was 27 then, all of my girlfriends were older or way older than me. And they were my teachers. I mean, they taught me, what women like, I was a dutiful student, and just so much fun, and I just love making them happy. And that's really, when I was 16, I thought it was hot stuff, and I had a really great friend who was a total jerk, and he was the first Marlboro Man, and I was his wingman. He was 30-something, and I was 16. And every woman wanted him. We'd walk into a bar and being his wingman was great. I got all these girls, I was the second choice, but they were all pretty good looking, and I was 16, and they were way older than me and knew what to do, and I was like, huh? So anyway, but, I was Mr. Electric. I was building these nightclubs. I was part of this esoteric community, part of the bohemian community, part of the art community. Yeah, would have these Friday potluck dinners in the East Village in my little apartment with the gang and the Dharma Bums. Anyway, so, but he said, buddy, you're like my little brother, and I really care about you more than almost anybody on the planet. And you've got great potential, and you remind me of myself. And when I was your age, I had no one like me to tell you, stop being a jerk. Be your better self. Don't be like me. I'm an asshole. At a certain point, everyone hates me. You, not so much. Pretty much everyone loves you because you're this innocent little furball that people think you're so cute and you're smart and you know all this stuff and you don't hold it over people, so don't be like me. So that was really one of I had great teachers before him, but that was one of the things that he talked about me, not about stuff, about me. And don't be like him, right? And so from that point on, I didn't. I tried to be the good Al, the better person I could be, no matter what happened, right? And then, I had, and because my life, and it still is this way, so I had my New York City life, I had my prep school life, I had this life, I had that life, so I wasn't stuck in any one thing. I just kind of moved around and did all this different stuff. And that has been my kind of how I've led my life my whole life. One of the little things about that is I have loads of friends who, they are an artist and they're either really famous or not so, but they're still doing art and that's why they do it. They love it. I have friends who are architects, who are contractors, who are, surgeons who but they've done just that one thing their whole friggin' life. Now, they're very lucky, and they've done this because that's the thing that brings them joy, doing that one thing. And the ones who aren't happy are doing it because of their ego and their career and their this and their that. and that's why they don't have really good relationships and da da da. But all my friends who have stuck at one thing also got married, also had children, and because they really enjoyed that one thing, they carried that enjoyment through everything they did. Now, I've done the same thing, but I do lots of different things, so I'm all over the place. So they are not super rich, but they always have enough, you know. And I've been rich, and now I'm not, but I've always had enough, and I'm always enjoying what I'm doing. And when I was really sick, and I was stuck here, I had no money, I had no, I was stuck up at the school for almost 2 years. I never went down because I couldn't. And luckily, I didn't die, and luckily, I lost the 270 pounds, and luckily, because I changed everything in my life, my body said, "Okay, won't end." But when you hurt organs and you did, but all truth, I doubt that. Well, Mayor Baba, right? He didn't. When did he die? In I don't know, 40s, 50s, 60s, somewhere like then. Well, right in the 60s, when I was with Hallie, his popularity, his books, his teachings were like just going like gangbusters. And so his institutional entity existed. And that's the Mayor Baba I met. And there were many, many, many of his students that I came across. Hallie was one of them. So you're right, physically. But the real deal is just because his bag of water wasn't there didn't mean that he wasn't there. And that's one of the things that I'm trying to get across to everyone is that, the universe, our lives are not these linear things that we have to be miserable through. And someone was asking me about the Mandela effect. And, I said it was like deja vu. Well, that was too simple of an answer. Because in reality, what's happening with the Mandela effect is that, people remember something they did, and then they look at that piece of history within the context of this linear moment, and that thing that they experienced is different than what this linear moment says it is. And that's happening more and more and more to a lot of people. To simply say it's deja vu, no, it's a little more than that. It's because it's making that experience of deja vu really concrete. Right? So, Mayor Baba, he was an avatar. He was like Jesus, He was like Buddha and Vishnu, but in the 20th century. So, and there were a lot of other, Thomas Merton was that way. Now, that guy I did know, he became a Catholic priest because of my mother. Go read his autobiography. And he talks about how he loved this woman, Wilma, who was an amazing goddess. And she said, "Oh, Tommy, you're sweet, but I can't be serious about you. You're not even Catholic." So he went to be Catholic, and then he fell in love with Jesus. And then he realized what Jesus was, and he was trying to bring Buddha, Vishnu, and all the other avatars together in a theologic point of view. This guy was brilliant. And the Catholic Church was all down for him writing his books because they were making millions off this guy. But once he went to Tibet and he was trying to bring it all together. And now there's a guy, he had a focus of discipline that was unstoppable, and that's the thing, but he didn't do the same thing over and over again, expecting a different outcome. He did different things focused on that singular outcome, right? So, And that's what I'm trying to talk to you family about, not about, blah, 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 no, or complain, or said, I did this for you, and what are you doing for me? No, no, no. We are a family. We are all our relations, and YouTube is a vehicle where I am putting all this stuff up, and that's why I'm doing lots of them, because at some point, if I go back to the deep forest, especially if, I get thrown under the bus again, the only place I can go is the deep forest, and the deep forest is pretty intense for winter. It was beautiful from May until 2 weeks ago, and I've been looking at the weather, and it's still, it's like now, 39 at night and, 60 during the day, and I could live with that. But last winter, it had feet of snow, and where I was, the people in the hollers, they didn't get out for weeks on end. And if I had that, and the electricity went off, and my water runs through hoses. I mean, it's for years, I just kept going to Florida. So, meaning I have a sense that John is being healed by his experience, and that's a good thing. And if he can put himself in homeostasis, meaning balance, well, he's a great guy. He's got great attributes. He's really talented. He can do whatever he wants to, as long as, he is in his better self. And you look at people who are really successful. I mean, really successful. And they don't really think about their career. They don't think about, they do art or music or business or whatever they're doing because the doing of it brings them joy. I used to live on the west side near Lincoln Center, and I used to go to this pharmacy that had, they don't really have this, but most pharmacies had a soda fountain where you get sandwiches and breakfast and cheeseburger and stuff. And there was this one really good one. And John Lennon was 3 blocks from there. And he used to go have breakfast there and get the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal and the Herald Tribune and the London, whatever. And he'd have a bunch of newspapers and he'd be reading them and doing the crossword puzzle and et cetera, et cetera. And he'd just be sitting at the counter. And everyone, and there were a number of us, 10 or 20 of us, that's where we had breakfast. And once look, it's John Lennon, he was just John, right? And he was just John. He wasn't like, I'm a Beatle. No, that he was like a house husband, and he was writing songs up there in his beautiful apartment. And then they had his son, and he spent, because his first son, he didn't spend any time with really. Well, his one he had with Yoko, he was the house husband. He took care of the boy, and he made enough money. He didn't have to worry about that. The powers that shouldn't be basically said, okay, cut it on that kind of political, spiritual stuff, and you can stay in America. And Yoko can stay in America too. We won't hassle you guys, because they really gave him a hard time. When the powers that shouldn't be want to screw with you, they sure can, And so he was just being a house husband. And like I said, he was living in joy because he was making everyone around him, his family, happy. Everything he did made them happy. His son, his wife, everybody in his little circle. It was not about him. He didn't make it run around him. I saw Prince once, right? When he did a show. And we were, he did it at Madison Square Garden or anything within a 60-mile radius of Pig White's. They may have their own show that they would load in, but to facilitate that load in, their power, their this, their that, we would do it. So I saw a lot of shows, a lot of people. I really want to go see the movie Bohemian Rhapsody because, I saw Queen a number of times. And those guys, at that time when Queen was like filling, stadiums, They were the best. Freddie Mercury's voice was unbelievable. The band was tighter than tight, like a drum. And when they were on stage during the show, they were in ecstasy. But when they walked off, they were miserable, you know. And Freddie is so that's why I want to see this movie, to see because I didn't like travel with these guys, so I just kind of saw it that night or a day or two. So I saw both people who were really famous and well to do and loved what they did, but they realized that their life was more than that, and they made the people around them happy. So let's see what else we got here. Boop, 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 boop. Let's see. Where did we leave off? Awesome. Yeah, okay. We talked about that. Midnight Cowboy is a great film. Oh, Midnight Cowboy. So you know that this is a great story. So, John Voight comes to New York from the West and wants to be a gigolo. He meets, Dustin Hoffman, that's Ratso Rizzo, and he's just, a total get over kind of guy. But then they become friends, and it's almost like What's His Name and Me. Whenever John and I do a video, we're either Abbott and Costello or, Jerry Lewis and Dean Martin, or Ratso Rizzo and the Cowboy. So that last scene, right? So Ratso, he hasn't lived too good. So just when John Voight's about to hit the big time, being a gigolo, and Ratso's going to get his cut, they go to this party, and Ratso obviously has pneumonia, and he's not taking care of himself. And they go to this party, and John's about to go home with the rich girl and he says, "Hey, you got to pay me." And she's, "Hey, that sounds great. And I'm going to tell all my girlfriends." And they're at this loft party in Soho, right? And they come out, and Ratso falls down the staircase and just falls and falls and falls and falls. And where that party was my friend's loft. He rented it out to the movie company to make it, because his loft was, meaning that building, the front door that went to the 6 stories was on Mercer Street. But his loft was a garret on top of it. And it had a staircase that went on the side of the building all the way down, 6th floor. So it didn't go like this, like most staircases. It went like this. And it had a light bulb at the top and one at the bottom. And in the door, there was a little window. And so you really had, and there was no railing, right? And it was kind of narrow, so you kind of leaned against the wall, and you had to watch what every step you took, because if you didn't, what happened to Ratso Rizzo ended up to you. And, there were loads of parties up there, and I saw a lot of people take a Ratso Rizzo a nosedive. And I think the guy who wrote it and produced it and directed it went to a party where that happened, so that's why he put that in there. Anyway, so that was my friend Alan, and we did Potato Wolf together. We were 2 producers of Potato Wolf, and we were 2 of the guys running collaborative art, and we were both organizational types of guys, right? Everybody else was just the artist, and you're not really, but the guys like Judy Ripka and the guys who became really famous and rich out of their art, Keith Haring and Julian Schnabel and et al. Now those guys were business guys. Those guys, dotted every I and crossed the T. And they were brilliant, and they knew how to market, and they really watched what Andy Warhol, because he was the first guy in the whole beat Soho crowd. I mean, the reason why he named his place where he made his art the Factory was that he got a commercial space in Union Square, and he saw the rest of us doing the same thing, but we were getting, a lot of crap from the city because we weren't supposed to be in factory buildings, living in them. So he started LLC and called it the factory. So they said, oh, look, he's got a factory, his electric bill, the factory, the rent check, the factory. So Alan and I went up there, and I think I was there overnight, and we, I was at least a little, I didn't go down that staircase. I had to be sober and aware of every place where my foot was going because I didn't want to down the staircase. So anyway, it's, 10 o'clock in the morning. We, had a couple cups of coffee and brushed the cobwebs out of our head. There was no food in this place, so we were going to make it down and walk over to Chinatown because dim sum, I love dim sum for breakfast. Anyway, so we're walking down, and we'd have to walk through Little Italy on the east side, and we'd get a few pastries and maybe go visit Mike Finelli and have a really nice cappuccino and some espresso with anisette. Anyway, so we are making our way down that staircase very slowly. We come out, and it's pretty sunny, and it's later than we think. It's about noon. It's like everyone's rushing around for lunch. And that door came out onto Houston Street, right? And about 2 or 3 blocks from Broadway. So this is a very busy, thoroughfare. And when we walk out, and right next to Alan's door coming out onto Houston Street, there was a store that was basically the Walmart's for bums. This guy, who was really a nasty guy, would take, most of the bums were military people who were suffering PTSD from World War II or Korea or Vietnam, and were on drugs and alcohol, and they were in the Bowery. They were Bowery bums. That's who those guys were. And I mean, the first Bowery bums were the Irish, who came off on the boat and were totally worn out by being a cog. And then it was the people who survived the Civil War, and the people who survived the Spanish-American War, and the people who survived for World War I and were suffering shell shock. Anyway, so all these guys would basically be drunk, and you'd have to step over them once you came out Alan's front door onto Houston Street. And as we opened the door, there's about 10 bums, not just, out, but screaming, where's it? Ah! And they're all pointing up in the sky, and we look up, and about 100 feet above, his garret, were these 2 things that look like ice cream cones the size of bread trucks, right? And they looked like ice cream cones, and they were like mushed into each other, and they were spinning, and sparks were shooting out of them. And the only people who noticed this were the bums on the sidewalk lying, looking up, and me and Alan, who had an open mind, and we didn't just look down. When they were pointing up, we looked up and said, my God, what the heck is that? And the only other guy who saw it was the guy who ran the bum store, who took advantage of these bums, and he came out to see what they're screaming about. And he saw it too, and he was going, it's Jesus! It's Jesus! But everybody else, I mean, there were hundreds of people running around on their errands, going to their lunch, and nobody looked up. And people, I say, hey, buddy, look up there. And he's like, I can't. And that's one of those little things that made me realize that to go through life and learn anything or see anything of value, you have to get outside of your own little bubble. You have to, most people, oh, these are bums. I'm not even going to look up at what they're looking at. Ooh, they smell. Ooh, this, blah, blah. They see them as the other. They judge them, all of that. So they didn't open their mind to see something that they need to see. Because right now, this was one of the things I was going to kind of talk about. So when I'm thinking about what I'm going to talk about, I kind of look at YouTube, and man, there's so much stuff on there. It's amazing. The thing I want you guys to look at, so anyone there Has anyone there had any paranormal experiences? Has anyone there seen a flying saucer? Has anyone there go to a conference, like a UFO conference? Has anyone go to hear David Icke speak, or Linda Moulton Howe, or any of the people who talk about breakaway civilization, or the space fleet out there, or the dark web, or is anybody out there who's conscious of any of this stuff? Because what I'd love is if you could start chipping away at this. If you go to MUFON TV or Gaia TV, that's where Linda Moulton Howe is, and that's where David Icke is. That's where David Icke actually has his own channel, but David Wilcox and Corey Good, they're there. And I'd love it if you guys went on that and looked that up. Midnight Cowboy, where we got to meet God, human form, perhaps you did. You promised to show pics of Grace before Al. Out of curiosity and shake up the subject, do you have any favorites when it comes to folk tales or old myths? Yep, we can do that. And that's what I'll do from my next tomorrow's live chat will be my favorite folk tales and talking about them, okay? Let's see. Yeah, I want to do music. Okay. Trevor, Crash, Giants, and real myths of our genetic. Yep. I will go after all of that. Yep, I will sit down and think about it and take some notes. And Van Gogh's approach to art is the art. The art was it all. Art for art's sake. 69. Thank you for your honesty, Al. Ancient One is always with everything. Yep, Bings of all Bings. His life was unmatched, just incredible. And we all can have an unmatched life, by having joy, by enjoying our life. And people who are like Mayor Baba, he just was enjoying his life, Lose that much weight. Thanks, John, for all that support. And John, you never saw me at my heaviest. Sorry, buddy. John's hanging in there just so he can try to throw a zinger or two in there, and it's really sad. Buddy, I love you, No matter what you say or do, I'll always love you. You're my friend, I ain't never gonna give up on you. I may not be around, John, but I'll never give up on you. Yeah, you're tired. I'm getting tired too. It's been an hour and 35 minutes. John, what is LifeWad? Ha. Really good movie. LifeWad's a good movie, or ha. Or Midnight Cowboy. Midnight Cowboy was a really good movie. Call me Rico, Ratzo. Thanks. Yeah, good. Well, Mick, everyone sees that stuff. Bohemian Rhapsody was a great movie. Okay, good. That'll be... I have a buddy who I go see movies with, Tom, and we go have lunch and go see a movie. So the mist thing. So when you see mist like that, what that is the what they used to call oh oh Tesla, Steinmetz, Ben Franklin, the ether. They called it the ether. Wilhelm Reich. Who else? There were a bunch of folks who were at that. And why Ben Franklin? He was one of the founding fathers because that guy was like the Albert Einstein of the time. And he wasn't rich, and he wasn't, I mean, he was like me. He always had as much money as he wanted, and he was always having a party. The reason Jefferson, Tom Jefferson, went to France first as our first whatever, and tried to get the French involved in our potential having a revolution. And they said, oh, this guy is so boring. So Ben Franklin went, and he started a nightclub called the Hellfire Club. And what that was all the rich and all the elite and the kings and the ducks and the dukes and the duchesses and everybody went, and they had a girls' dressing room and a boys' dressing room. And everyone took off all of their clothes and wore masks. And so the king of France could, go out there and have sex with whoever he wanted to, and and vice versa. The queen could do the same thing. And after Ben went back, first he was hanging out with all the great minds, and they were going, boy, this Franklin guy, he is small art. And he was an alchemist, and he was part of, he wasn't, he was a Mason, but not like, all the founding fathers were Masons who wore the aprons. He was like time traveling back to the Egyptians. So the French said, hey, this Franklin guy, he is the dude. And when they made that movie about the dude with Jeff Bridges, what was that movie called? Anyway, that was like, that's me. That movie's mine. And the guy's always wearing his pajamas, just like me. Anyway. So when you see the shadow, the mist and the shadowy, so you see the shadowy thing, so we're looking straight ahead, right? And all the little cones in our eye are kind of taking the light, and the lens focuses the light there. So that's kind of what our brain is seeing. But all the cones are in the whole back of our eye. So we actually have peripheral vision. We see this over here. Even though we're not looking at it, we're seeing that over there, right? So when you see that little shadow, it's over here. And over here is where that parallel universe is. Over here is where the ether between those two parallel universes is the strongest. And so that's what you're seeing. And so, I don't know if you've ever done this, but you kind of zone off when you're watching TV, and then you kind of realize that you're getting almost like a fisheye look at things. And you don't want to lose it, so you don't move, you don't breathe, you're just like seeing that. Now, if you can consciously, this is like meditation, if you can consciously practice doing that, that's when you can see dimensional characters. That's when you can see the other side. That's where your brain starts to get sharp enough that you can start to be paranormal. Psychic, that's not the right definition for it. Because you're not just reading your mind. I mean, to really have that. So that's why when you meet a person not from this dimension, or I have to put the tag words in so these videos get big. I have no idea what that means. I don't know how to do that. Sorry. And John, you've never shown me anything. And so I'll figure it out one day. Yes, The Big Lebowski. That's the movie. And John, the YouTube is as big as it needs to be. How I'm looking at it is not like I'm going to be monetize. I don't monetize this. What I am doing is I am being the little pebble in the pond, and the vibration is going. It's 211 or 12 or however many family members. I don't like calling subscribers. No, you're not subscribers. You are my griots. You are my loving family. You are my what was the term one of you guys used last night? I didn't write it down. Gang, for a better loss of the term. Big Lebowski. I dress like Walter for Halloween. Walter. Oh, you mean in the Big Lebowski? Yeah. Who is that played by? Played by. Anyway, Jennifer Kay. Look at all those smiles, Jay. Yeah, relations. That's it. All our relations. Yep. Well, that's a bigger thing than just the people watching YouTube. Bless me. That sneeze is a genetic sneeze from my mother. My mother was like a queen. Every hair in the place. Her dress was always amazing. She was just, people were like, wow, every time they saw her. And she was a triple Capricorn, so she ruled the world. But when she sneezed, she would go, ah, ah, ah. And by the fourth if she did any more uhs, that sneeze was going to be like a hurricane. And so by the third, all of us kids got under the table. And so when she would do that in public, it was like we had, for the door, because people would like think it was an earthquake. So my sneezes, whereas my Aunt Gracie, she used to go, achoo, achoo. I take after my mom. I take after my mom in a lot of things, especially my teeth and she had all the things that I have, and anyway. Yes, John Goodman's character. Yeah. I liked him. I liked him. I mean, the dude was just the dude, meaning he was like organically that way. Whereas the guy who played his buddy, that you got dressed up like for Halloween, he was a thinker. He was like Chaucer, and Donnie, who was what's his name, the thin little guy. He actually, I knew him really well because he was part of our Potato Wolf. He was one of the actors in our TV show, and when I knew him, he was a fireman. And then he got hurt, and he took his money, and he took acting classes and went to California. Now, there's a guy. He wanted to be successful as a film actor, not a star, a film actor. And he went and he took the courses. Then because I, met him actually at HB Studios, and where I worked. And then he wanted to act in anything he could. And I said, hey, we're doing a TV show. And he went and did that with us. And there were a lot of other guys who went into TV, but they all took acting classes. And once they thought they got good enough and something happened where I can either stay at this crappy job or, get bought out or get a few dollars and I'll go to California. And they stayed there and went to every audition and just did it, got a manager and just stuck at it. And now they didn't do the same thing, they did all different things, but their prime goal was this, and they stayed at it. And every one of those guys succeeded. Now, they didn't become, super duper star. Now, this guy did. But all the others became very successful actors. And when they come back to New York and I'm still there, they would stumble into me and, hey, what you doing? And that's why they succeeded, because that's part of success, meaning I may have done a lot of different things, but within that construct, so I was a great electrician. By 11, I was, they could send me off and I could fix things. So that was, I mastered that skill. And then I got a teacher, Billy Kluver, who kind of said, someone once said, boy, you do so many things, you're, jack of all trades, master of none. And Billy said, no, this guy is a master of a lot of things, because he has learned how to take that ability to be, that made him a master electrician by the time he was 14, and use that same skill set. Tags equal buzzwords. You can list to be searched categories attached to each upload example or videos about cake baking. Okay, so where do I put that down? Where do I go look for what, you know? So when I go on a live chat, I know where to put the title. So where do I put the buzzwords? Where do I plug that in? You know, and guys, I love chatting, and our chattings are getting better and better and better. And if you can't long, then yeah. Let's see. Not true. Have tons of tips. Anyway, only longing to know love, and if you can't long, then long for the longing for the rare gift of love, the beloved, knowing that as your very self. Exactly. That's when you're transcendental. And, you know, anyway, so where was I? Let's see. It's 1 hour and 48 minutes and 20 seconds. So the sticking to things, right? And once you learn how to master one thing, you can master everything you do by using that same skill set to master everything. And that's why, you know, I'm Sensei Al Bob, because I'm a master electrician, I'm a master photographer, and then there are a bunch of things that I'm a master healer. And these are things that I can do at any time, any place. But the other skill sets I have, like painting and sculpting. It's like, and printing, no one prints photographs anyway, with chemicals. I kind of have to get into a jag. And writing, I have to get into a jag, which means I have to write a lot, and that's why I write every day. I write a journal, and then stuff turns out pretty good, and I use that journal to write this, that, other. Anyway, let's see. It's interesting how John plays the same character in the chat as he does when we did our earlier YouTubes, when I'd be telling a story and he would jump in with something that wasn't quite connected. And people would get, why is this guy doing it? Shut up, you know, and he would get very upset when people would give him a hard time on his channel. The bottom line is that John, actually, when you see these psychic interruptions about, you know, so if he's got a good tip, tell me how to put that buzzword into my thing. I know how to put the title on the live chat. Where'd the buzzword go? You know, give me that now, John. But anyway, that's irrelevant. The interesting thing is the energetic gestalt that John keeps doing, because it basically breaks the thread of what we're doing here. But when you see deeper into where that comes from, it is the perfect example of what's going on in our society, you know? And that's why I love John, because he is the canary in the social coal mine. You just have to look at how he acts and what he does, and I'm around him more than pretty much anybody else on this universe, so I really get to see what it is. And then when you know, I'm sorry, you got to leave, blah, 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 I know that's not John. That's John having 3 cups of coffee. That's John getting upset about something he doesn't need to get upset about, And I can either, spend hours trying to get back there, or I can just let the universe take me on to another adventure. And that's why I spent, from May 1st until 2 weeks ago, or a little bit more, I pretty much wasn't here. And I only came back because about every 40, 60 days, I have to get my eyes. And every 40 or 60 days, I have to get my medicine. And I have it wired in where my medicines, if I was just a working guy and had insurance, it would cost me like $6,000 a month for my medicines. But because I have no money, I fit into this very nice little category of like totally broke homeless guy. So the people who take care of me actually make more money by signing me up to this program, and so, but they all kind of are here because of Carillion. Carillion is this big medical monster that has taken over Roanoke, Virginia. So I have to come back here. And I, no longer live here. I visit John. And John is, to say, very generous to let me spend that day or two that I get operated on and then recoup. But usually there's something that, and instead of he and I talking about it, which I'm always ready to do, but he gets to a point where, he throws me under the bus and out the door. And when I get the little, ringing bell from the universe saying, well, it's probably better you just go, because you're going to run into something that, you need to help somebody else other than John, And John will either appreciate you more because you're not there, or he won't, But, John and I have a relationship. And, as long as I, still view him as a friend, I will always view John as a friend. And I will always not give up on him. But one of the reasons I left in May was I felt that I was, in a certain way, enabling this thing to not a positive end. So I thought, okay, let John be on his own, see what he could do with that, and how he could, marshal himself into the better person he is, maybe. So, like I said, doing the same thing over and over is not a good thing. So I changed it up by not really spending the summer. Oh, let's see. Not sure where they go in description, maybe. Reach tags for YouTube. Okay, I'll look for tags. The Joker. Yep. Turn on the radio, take a break, halftime, election results. Oh, hey, what are the... I don't have a radio here. I'd have to go online. What are the results? It's like a baseball game, Tell me what it is. And let's see. An hour and 55 minutes. I think I'm going to say goodnight at an hour and 55 minutes and 55 seconds. I love you guys. Tomorrow, 7 p.m., right? And I'm going to look at myths and stories that I can say that's my favorite one. And I want all of you guys to have myths and stories too. I love you. Talk to you later.